Hey guys, welcome back to DASKA Discusses. Sorry I'm a bit late on my uploads today, but I thought, well, you know what, I'll take my time with this one. Yes, that's right, today I'm going to be reviewing and looking at the Oscars as a whole, but specifically we're going to look at Green Book. Let's do this. Now the Oscars have done and dusted, we've seen who's won everything, and obviously, Rami Malek, Best Actor, very good. Best Picture went to Green Book. And that's what I'm going to be talking about now. I'll talk about the Oscars a bit later on, but let's discuss Green Book. Directed by Peter Farrelly last year, came out late last year in Australia. It's still playing at the cinemas now. Stars Viggo Mortensen and Mahershala Ali, hope I pronounced that right. It's based on the true story of Dr. Don Shirley, a famous jazz/classical pianist in the 60s. And you've got a character called Tony the Lip, or Tony Lip, who has to basically, well, he gets hired, he's like an Italian bouncer, Italian-American bouncer, who has to basically chauffeur and just make sure that everything goes okay with Dr. Donald Shirley as he does his tour in the 60s in the deep south of America. Now, if you've seen other films, and obviously if you know your history about America at that time, the laws of segregation, etc., the film does go into a lot of detail about that, and it's interesting how it does its take on it. You've got two key characters, Tony the Lip and Dr. Donald Shirley, who basically, well, Dr. Donald Shirley, well, what I felt with him was that him having this whole rep of being a famous pianist and composer, he needs someone to guide him through the deep south of America. So they find Tony the Lip, who's, you know, a bit of a muscle guy, you know, well, obviously the muscle, you could say, like that cliche mafia muscle. Now the thing is, it's played by Viggo Mortensen, who obviously was Aragorn, son of Arathorn. The problem is the first probably 25-20 minutes of the film, every time I saw him, I know it's, I'm not saying I'm typecasting him to Lord of the Rings, but I kept thinking of him, you know, storming the Black Gate in like Return of the King or Minas Tirith or whatever. But apart from that, he did put on some extra pounds and kgs for this, and it shows in the film, which brings a bit more realism to it. Now apparently the real life Tony the Lip was similar to this, so Viggo Mortensen went all out and got De Niro into it, you know, from Raging Bull, add some more food to make himself look the part. At the start of the film, you've got how Tony the Lip reacts to when his wife calls two African American guys to fix something in their kitchen, and he throws out the glasses. Now this whole thing about race and prejudice is really evident about how Tony the Lip feels towards African Americans in America during this time. And his wife takes out the glasses, and it's that whole kind of mentality of, well, the audience is being told that this is how Tony the Lip feels towards African Americans. Then you've got Dr. Donald Shirley, which, again, Mahershala Ali winning the supporting actor award for this was fantastic. I just feel that his character, when we get introduced to him and he's got all the elaborate furniture and giant thrones and all these paintings and all that, that's all well and good, but I don't think they fleshed out enough of why he had all that stuff in his room and why he was living in this big room. Now, maybe I'm wrong, but if I am, you can tell me in the comments. I just felt they didn't flesh out his character enough. When they get onto their journey, they're in the car, you can see throughout the whole film their relationship build. You got Tony the Lip with the smoking in the car, tells him not to, he's eating in the car, he's doing all this stuff that's pretty obnoxious, doesn't care what Dr. Donald Shirley thinks as well, takes him to all the different concerts and different gigs he's got, you could say, and everything goes all fine at the start. Then as things go on in the film, he gets taken into places where African Americans are not wanted, and you've got the whole thing about segregation, about using different bathrooms, and obviously the Green Book itself in the title refers to the booklet that African Americans used to use back then to work out which hotels, I think hotels, restaurants they could actually go to. And Viggo Mortensen's character has to deal with that, and in some cases staying in different hotels to Dr. Donald Shirley as well. One of my favourite parts of the film is when they get pulled over for basically nothing. They get lost, they're in the rain, and Viggo Mortensen gets called something really derogatory towards him and punches the police officer in the face. They get put into jail, and Dr. Donald Shirley is asking for his phone call. Now I'm like, okay, how are they going to get out of this one? And then he rings up and he finds out that basically, you know, it was Bobby Kennedy who got him out there, and Tony the Lip, you know, Viggo Mortensen's character is really amazed about how that happened, and the way that Dr. Shirley deals with that and tells him that I shouldn't have had to do that. You know, it's all these references towards the time. Okay, now is it evident in today's day and age? Yes, of course. Now I think the film really worked well, and it did showcase that ideology of race majorly in the film. But Tony the Lip and Dr. Donald Shirley, they're relationship builds throughout the film, and I guess you can say that their racial prejudices, well, not the racial prejudices, but the way they are in the film towards race grows as well. You see how Tony the Lip reacts once things start going wrong for his boss, you could say, and also how Dr. Don Shirley reacts to as well. It's a very interesting look at 1960s America. Other films that touched on this, well, there's plenty to look at. We won't get into that as well. And throughout the film, you know, especially when it comes up to that last act where Dr. Donald Shirley basically got a big gig in Birmingham where there's all these people waiting. It seems that they've pushed the film, they've made it seem that this last gig is huge. It's the last gig right before Christmas and he needs to accomplish this to get paid, etc. It's always about all this. And what happens is, or about money, sorry. And what happens is basically he needs to, he wants to eat, and he's quite hungry. Now before this scene there was a scene where he needed to go to the bathroom and they wouldn't let him use the bathroom, so he actually drove back to the hotel itself. It's these kinds of things, these kinds of scenes that point out that ideology of race definitely in Green Book. But I think specifically the last scene where he wants to have dinner and they won't let him because he's African American. And that scene really stood out to me as well, and it was just so evident in that, and the acting from Mashallah Ali, the way he acted, and even that maitre d', even though he's a real, not a nice guy, the way he acted about the whole, you know, it's no big deal, just, you know, go and eat down the road kind of mentality. That was a really powerful scene, and he said, well, I'm not going to play. If I can't eat here, I'm not going to play. And he ends up going to this bar, and it's an all African American bar, and it's kind of like the table, not the tables have turned, but it's kind of like the opposite of what Tony the Lip has been experiencing. And we see Dr. Donald Shirley get up there and play piano at this African American bar with Viggo Mortensen standing there, and it's a fantastic scene. He plays, but then when they go out, again Tony the Lip protects Dr. Donald Shirley off two guys that were going to rob them as well, which is really interesting how that kind of worked. So the key characters in the film really worked well together, and as the film progresses, at the start I wasn't really buying the relationship, obviously, but as the film goes through the opening and the development, you can tell and you can see on screen the development of these two characters and how they experience what's happening around them, how each one has their own way of dealing with what's going on. And at the end of the film, when Dr. Donald Shirley goes to Christmas dinner at Tony the Lip's house, again, another great scene. Now, I don't know the full controversies of what happened. I don't know, you know, people say it didn't deserve Best Picture, it's altered the facts, and people aren't really happy. Even the family of Dr. Donald Shirley aren't too happy. The main thing I was going to say was that they didn't flesh out his character enough as to how important he was during that time. Now, I know, you know, he does all the gigs and all that, but I just think it would have been good if they just went a bit more detail about him, especially with all the elaborate stuff that he had in his room. Now, as far as Best Picture goes, I can't really say whether or not deserved it or not, but I can say this. I've seen all the Best Picture nominations apart from Vice, which I'm really looking forward to seeing. Now, look, Star is Born and Bohemian Rhapsody, no, I'm sorry, they're not really Best Picture worthy in my opinion. I saw The Favourite, it wasn't my favourite. No, I mean, it was okay, it wasn't the best. Roma, fantastic cinematography, wins Best Foreign Film, fantastic, but in terms of like pacing, not for everyone. I know it's meant to go into that whole realism, not for me. Black Panther, again, they weren't going to give it to for a superhero film, not Best Picture worthy in my opinion, great, but no. I think it was definitely between Green Book and Black Klansman, and I'm not saying this because I'm a Spike Lee fan, I just think Black Klansman had the better script. I know the storylines are both based on true events and true stories of what happened. I think Black Klansman should have got Best Picture, but in saying that, Green Book is a fantastic film, and if you haven't seen it, watch it, make up your own mind. Let me know what you think in the comments about whether or not you agree with anything I'm saying and whether or not you think that Black Klansman should have won Best Picture or something else. I give Green Book a solid 7.5 out of 10. And as always guys, if you've liked my videos, please leave a like, and if you want to comment on anything that I've said, please leave a comment below. And if you've enjoyed all this and you want to keep seeing my videos, don't forget to hit subscribe. And I'll see you guys on the next episode of DASKA Discusses. Boom!